Ah, Edward II, King of England, lover of unusual hobbies, hater of war, and the living embodiment of why giving your bestie too much power might just get you both killed. Born in a half-built Welsh castle in 1284, because apparently royal births require scaffolding, young Edward would grow up to become the first Prince of Wales, a title he seemed to enjoy about as much as a leaky boot. In fact, he once offered his cousin some Welsh greyhounds so useless they could only catch a hare if it was asleep, and followed it up by joking he'd throw in a few wild men too. Delightful. Now, Edward wasn't your typical medieval king. While his father was out conquering and smashing skulls, Edward preferred music, jesters and mingling with carters, ditch diggers and anyone else with a good story and a pint. Tournaments? Hated them. Nobles? Meh. Enter Piers Gaveston, handsome, witty, a knight originally placed in Edward's household for military guidance but quickly promoted to royal obsession. Was it love? Lust? Bromance? Who knows? What we do know is this: Edward ignored his teenage French bride Isabella, gave Piers the earldom of Cornwall, reserved for royals, mind you, and let him wear a dazzling outfit of imperial purple and pearls at the coronation banquet. Naturally, the barons were thrilled. Just kidding. They were apoplectic. And when Gaveston started mocking them with names like Black Dog and Burst Belly, civil war seemed inevitable. The barons forced Edward to exile Gaveston, not once but twice. On his second return, Thomas of Lancaster, Edward's cousin and professional party pooper, had enough. Gaveston was seized, dragged to Scarborough and, without so much as a mind the axe, beheaded. Edward, devastated, cried, "No one fights for me!" Well, not when you keep giving away land like it's a Tesco voucher, Ed. To win back respect, Edward tried war. Big mistake. At Bannockburn in 1314, the Scots gave England the mother of all spankings. The English cavalry charged into a bog, because nothing says genius tactics like sending horses into a swamp, and were cut down like medieval confetti. Edward shat himself and fled, his dignity in tatters. His cousin Lancaster took over the realm. Spoiler, he was just as useless. Then came torrential rains, 3 years of crop failure, and a famine so horrific people were boiling horse meat and whispering about cannibalism. Monks led barefoot processions. God apparently declined the RSVP. Desperate for a new BFF, Edward chose Hugh Despenser the Younger, who, along with his dad, hoarded lands, threatened nobles, and behaved like a 14th century mafia family. The barons revolted again, the Despensers were exiled, and Edward responded by executing the garrison of Leeds Castle. Charming. In 1322, Edward turned the tables. He defeated Lancaster and became the first English king to execute a member of the royal family for treason. Lancaster's tomb promptly became a site of miracles, because medieval politics was one part Game of Thrones, one part Hogwarts. Edward then ruled like a petty tyrant, seizing lands, enriching himself and relying entirely on the Despensers. He taxed, imprisoned, and generally annoyed everyone. Queen Isabella, who'd spent years being publicly ignored, privately insulted, and politically sidelined, finally snapped. She fled to France, took up with Roger Mortimer, a rebel and prison escapee, and together they raised an invasion army. In 1326 they landed in Suffolk, and Edward, brave soul, immediately shat himself again, panicked and ran. The Despensers were caught, Daddy was hanged, Hugh was hanged, disemboweled alive, beheaded, and just to be safe, quartered. Bit of an overachiever, that one. Edward was captured, deposed by Parliament, well, sort of Parliament, and imprisoned in a castle. Then came the grand finale, Edward's infamous death. According to legend, he was killed by having a red-hot poker. Well, inserted somewhere highly unpleasant. Was it poetic justice? Was it propaganda? Was it just someone being really dramatic? We'll never know. Or maybe we do. A letter from a papal official later claimed Edward escaped, fled to Italy, and lived out his days as a hermit. Meanwhile, Isabella and Mortimer ruled in luxury until 1330, when Edward III, by then a teenager bristling with resentment, launched a coup. With the help of a secret tunnel, always the best kind, he captured Mortimer at Nottingham Castle and ignored Isabella's screams for mercy. Mortimer was executed. Isabella was retired to a countryside manor. Edward III took the throne. And this time, England had a king who preferred war and knew how to win it. So, what do we learn from Edward II? Well, perhaps never mix personal favourites with political power. Never fight Scots in a swamp, or Scots in general. And never ever let your enemies write your obituary. History, it's not just brutal, it's bloody brilliant. Follow for more history drenched in sarcasm and dread.